South Sudan, a name known for its beauty, attractions, it is endowed with natural minerals and conducive weather. It is time you explore its investment opportunities. The country is open for both big and small investors, though this video's main focus is on small investors. Who are these small investors? These are people who want to start a business like a poultry farm, running an estate agency, a stationery distribution center, a tech agency. Oh, they may want to start a school. This might be a primary school or a secondary school. Or they may want to start any medium income establishment. Welcome to Visit All Africa, a channel for the diasporas who want to start businesses in Africa, a channel for people who want to invest and live in Africa, a channel for NGO startups and those who are looking for job opportunities in Africa. In today's episode, we are talking about starting a business in South Sudan. South Sudan is surrounded by a number of countries, including Uganda, Kenya, Sudan, Ethiopia, to name but a few. According to the 2022 census, the population of South Sudan is estimated to be 10.9 million people. The country's capital is Juba, the main business and investment hub. So why invest in South Sudan? South Sudan has enormous potential. 1. Oil production. 2. Connected to a number of countries. 3. Open market policy. 4. Big youth population. 5. Ambitious projects. Now, let me delve deep to talk about these 5 points. Let's start talking about oil production. Sudan's oil is among the largest oil reserves in the sub-Saharan Africa. Oil is a source of economic development. Now, you can start a business relating to the services that are provided by oil companies. For example, there are satellite businesses. You can start a business in transport whereby you buy an oil tanker truck. These are trucks that carries oil from the refinery to the port. This is a lucrative business. There is always a need for oil tanker trucks to ferry the oil to distribution centers, petrol stations, to ports, and so many different places. With this, you have a business running non-stop. It's 24 hours. The demand is high. You just cannot sustain the market. So this is one of the ways you can start a business that is related to oil and you make a good income out of it. The second reason why you should start a business in South Sudan, South Sudan is connected to a number of countries. Why is this an advantage to you? This is good for an investor, being that you have the option to import or export to any of the neighboring countries. You see, South Sudan is heavily dependent on agriculture, but it does not produce enough food for its own consumption, which means there is a market to import food and beverages from countries like Uganda and Kenya to South Sudan. At the same time, you can export. South Sudan has fine, high-quality timber, which you can export to places like China. South Sudan rear goats and sheep. Meat product is on high increase in the UAE. You have a big market to supply to the UAE and the Middle Eastern countries. South Sudan grows onion. You can sell this to the neighboring countries. So when it comes to import or export, what quality, quantity, from where do you get these products? How do you do the export paperwork? What involved in export or export? How do you find the sellers, the buyers? All these questions, we can answer them in our next session. Click on the link in the description. What we are going to talk about is the open market policy. In South Sudan, when it comes to business, there are no restrictions on trade. As long as the business is working in legal activities, all areas are open for import and export. You can work in agriculture, construction, education, business startups, tourism, hospitality, ICT, any sector you can think of for trade, investment, and high profit, high returns, it is allowed in South Sudan. This is good news for any investor. For a person like you, you work in London, you work in Italy, you work in Germany, and you are thinking about the future, that in 20, 30 years, I want to have savings, I want to retire. Business like this, a place like this where you can open a business with no restrictions, it's good for you. You don't have to have big capital to start a business in South Sudan. So think deeply. This is the place to invest. The next point we are going to talk about is the big youth population. South Sudan has a large youth population. More than 70% of South Sudan's population is under the age of 30. So you have people who are willing to do any job. There will be no shortage for the skills labor force. And you have a big market to sustain. So your business will always have people who will work for you, who will manage your business, who will operate your business, and you're looking this on a future prospect, on a long-term prospect. There is a big youth population that will be available to work for your business. The next point that we are going to talk about is the ambitious projects. The country has started development initiatives in infrastructure, utilization of fertile agriculture land, mineral exploration and mining, hydropower plant construction, sustainable agriculture, biofuel production, extensive road networks, high-speed railway links to regional countries, high-speed internet, to name but a few. These projects are aimed to bring about social and economic development in the country. By you starting a business now in South Sudan, you pivot yourself to capture a big chunk of the market, because as the nation's economy grows, your business grows too. With these projects, say for example, the road networks, you are going to open up a business. Remember, we talked about your logistics business, whereby, for example, you have a lorry that transports oil from an oil refinery to the port. The roads will be clear. You'll be able to transport your oil on a smooth road. You'll be able to transport oil on a railway link from one port to the neighboring country. So you'll have high-speed internet, easy for you to communicate. With all this infrastructure in place, it is easy for business to flourish. The next point that we are going to talk about is no competition in South Sudan. The nation is in its early stage of development. So there are no competitors to talk about, like in tourism, agriculture, health, business, startups. There are not many players. So this gives you a center stage to showcase your business to a wider market. Let's look at an example. If you want to run a business in tourism, let's say accommodation services. What do we mean when we talk about accommodation services? This is where you provide accommodation services to short-stay tourists, including the business that you might be involved in, bed and breakfast, hotels, private accommodation, serviced apartments. Now, what happens with this You provide the services working along with these institutions like the hotels, the private accommodations. This is where you provide accommodation services to short stay tourists. Some of the business you might be involved in making booking include bed and breakfast, hotels, private accommodation, serviced apartments. After booking, you make a commission from the tourists who book for their duration of stay. In business, one of the most important things that you do to stand out is to pick a niche market. You segment a market, you specialize in this area, and you make sure that not many people are in this sector. You specialize in providing seamless experience in booking and handling accommodation to events like conferences, seminars. In this, you provide experiences related to the accommodation that you booked before. Say, for example, the visitors may want to go to this event. So you provide services related to that. This might be a minibus that carries the tourists from the hotel to the sports event and back. Later on in the evening, they may want to go for dinner, just a restaurant. You arrange services related to that. So you are providing seamless experiences in booking and handling accommodation events. That's one of the areas that you can specialize in. In South Sudan, with the rise of tourists and businesses bouncing back, there is a need to provide accommodation services to visitors. By getting into opportunities like this, you stand a chance to make it big and in a very short time, as there are not many companies that provide these kind of services. The chances are high that any investment in South Sudan you invest in will generate high returns. The reason being that most of the businesses in South Sudan have no competitors. The country is relatively young. It is in its infancy stage. It went through challenges, and now it's getting back on the economic track and the recovery. It is high time you make your mark. Enter now and build a long-lasting business. The South Sudan market is very big. You just can't service it all. The country is open for trade, investment, startups, small business and medium-sized businesses, and anything in between. The country has not many industries, which gives you an opportunity to start a small manufacturing plant. If you are into this, this is the place to go into. Anything you can think of, from making soap, oil, paper, anything in manufacturing, there is high demand for your product. If you are not into manufacturing, how about agriculture? The country has fertile soil. What do you want to produce? Soybeans, maize, cotton, peanuts, wheat? There is a market for it. Think of livestock. As I mentioned before, there is a high demand for that in the Middle East. Dairy farming, there is a high demand for it. The poultry market is big, and this is everywhere. Anywhere in the world you think of, there is a demand for poultry products. In South Sudan, depending on your investment, you can supply chicken and eggs not only in the country, but to the neighboring countries. Let's talk a little bit more about this. You don't need much capital to inject into the poultry business. You just need structures where you host your birds, the chicken, poultry feed, water, feeders, nests, litter system. And when it comes actually to raising chicken, one of the things that you should always think of is the tidiness. Keep the place clean. You see what happens with the chicken? When they eat, they litter at the same place where they live. So they can easily have healthy problems. So in order to keep them healthy all the time, keep the place clean, clean, clean. So these are the only things that you require in running a poultry farm. Most of the businesses in South Sudan, you don't have to have big capital to start. So you have questions. You want to know how much to start a business in South Sudan? which is the suitable location to run your business, which market is good to enter into, where do you find customers, how to run and operate any type of business you're thinking of, or you are not even sure of. Well, you are in the right place. Feel free to register for our sessions. Contacts are in the description below. I'll talk about another business that one can start in South Sudan. This time, let's talk about a skilled job. The tech sector is one of the fastest growing sector in the world. In South Sudan, this sector is only starting to make its presence felt. So there is a big gap to fill. Let's look at the available opportunities to start tech business in South Sudan. Your background may be system engineer, maybe you're a web developer, maybe Web 3.0 developer, maybe you're a cloud engineer. What do you do with the skills that you have? One most important thing that you should do is to open up a tech agency, because this will be your contact reference. This is whereby you sell your services and products to the open market. To understand what I mean by this, let's assume X is a web developer. He has a diploma in both front-end and back-end programming. With this, he can open up a web design agency in Juba, where he designs websites for small companies, medium companies, schools, NGOs, and private individuals. With the skills X has, opening up an agency, not only he designs websites for companies, but he can as well sell domains, web space, hosting plans, SSL certificate, or anything related to web hosting. Remember, South Sudan's economy is growing, and your business will grow too, as there are new businesses and services that require the products and services that you provide. So how do you start a tech business or any other business in South Sudan? What are the requirements, skills, or contacts? How do you go by in finding your first customer? Who are your customers? What capital is good for a start? How can you manage your business remotely? What type of business is easy to start? These questions we can answer you in our masterclass. For the next session, click on the link in the description. Our sessions are built to fill you with the information you require, the motivation you need to move you, to inspire you to start a business in South Sudan. We work with you to develop a customized business plan based on the available opportunities and market demand. We provide you with the contacts, the leads, and the network that you need in your business. We work with people who have no idea what they want to do or are not sure what industry to get into. These are people with no skills. We work with people who are curious about what they want to do for their retirement in South Sudan or generally in Africa. What business can they start? We guide you from the conception stage, the business launch, to the operational stage. South Sudan is calling people right now to start businesses. It wants people like you to invest and operate businesses in the country. You can start a business in tourism, in education, youth development, in sports, agriculture, construction. The sky is the limit. Start now. The link is in the description. I would like to remind you that you are here because you are thinking of starting a business in South Sudan. Starting a business where you hardly have a competitor. You will certainly be the key player. The market is big, and you can start small but have high ambitions. The country has a young population, so you have a growing market to sustain. The potential for making it big in South Sudan is wide open. You invest small, and the returns are high. In our sessions, we register a minimum number of people. The reason being that this allows people to ask questions during the sessions and after the sessions. This session is for starting a business in South Sudan, but anyone thinking of starting a business in Africa can benefit from this session. We run both group sessions and private sessions because there are people who prefer to have private consultations. We do accommodate that as well. Details are in the description. If this is your first time here, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much for participating.